Cool. All right. Well, today we have Jack Settleman, currently of Snapback Sports and of Whistle Sports. Going to hang out with me in a little bit and talk about why we both hate the Eagles so much. So, Jack, really appreciate you coming on today, man.
Thank you for having me.
No, brother, pleasure's all mine. So, I do have to ask. I was listening to a couple of your podcasts and in the lead up to this, and why do you hate the Eagles so much? I'm just curious.
So my co-host of the podcast and my longtime best friend, as I always say in the intro, is a diehard Eagles fan. I went to summer camp in right outside of Philadelphia. So, I mean, Eagles fans are just delusional.
Mm,
They are obsessed with their teams. They just push everything on you. So I grew up loving the Ravens and hating the Eagles. That's just what's
love
built
it.
into it.
I'm all for it, man. I grew up loving the Giants and hating the Eagles, so it's been a pretty kind of shitty, honestly, last few years. But whatever. Congratulations to you, though. Ravens finally coming back. That's pretty great, man. Good for you.
Thank you. I'm going home this weekend for the game against the Titans. I'm excited. I mean, on my Snap, it's kind of become my whole content of
Mhm.
Lamar Jackson. In the first preseason game, and the irony is I wasn't the biggest believer in him. I
Yeah.
thought he could be good. He would be super fun. He was way more fun than Flacco. But I started calling him the baby goat, which led to me making shirts out of it, merchandise, leader of the Baby Goat fan club. It's just spiraled out of control. And obviously, I couldn't have picked a better player.
Dude, that is
After the
awesome.
season.
Yeah, I mean, electric isn't even the best word you can use this year. I just remember, not to go down too far down this rabbit hole, but I think one buddy's a Rams fan, and I was over at his house watching that game, and I just remember sitting there. I was like, all right, I'll leave at halftime, like whatever. It's primetime game, so I want to go home. And their 2 minute offense was like 7 runs and a touchdown. And I was like, that's not
Right.
how football is supposed to work. Like, you don't start at the 15, run the ball 7 times and score a touchdown when you're trying to run your 2 minute offense. And it's just,
Right.
dude, the guy's incredible. But it's so much fun. And hey, man, I'm rooting
It
for
was
you.
awesome.
I'm just so happy the Patriots, the Eagles are out. I mean, this is probably going to be the
Yeah,
three
it's
best
it's
weeks.
teams that people want to root for. And listen, I want Lamar, but Lamar Mahomes in the AFC Championship is just going to be fun within itself.
It's
So
going to be insane, man. So good stuff. But anyway, so we have Jack on today. Jack, as I said already, Snapback Sports has a couple different podcasts, has a Snapchat channel, which I think I wrote down here 480 million views. Is that correct?
I did 480 million views in 2019.
In
Yes.
2019. So that was one calendar year.
Yeah.
So some people are paying
Yeah.
attention to you, man. So yeah, I just wanted to have you on, ask you some questions, hear about your story in sports, how you got here. First thing, we already talked about how much we hate the Eagles. So I'm really happy about that. We connect. Honestly, if we ended it here, I'd consider this a success, but I'm sure there's some more stuff we can chat about. I guess like where did your love of sports come from? And you know, where has this drive come from to help you kind of create this entire career and entity and business of yourself?
Totally. I would say it's ingrained in my family. So my family business is beer distribution. So my parents or my mom and my grandfather, we sell beer, Miller Lite, Coors Light, Sam Adams to different accounts in Baltimore. Our biggest account being the Baltimore Ravens and the Baltimore Orioles. So business does well when those teams do well. Therefore,
Uh-huh.
my mom becomes a diehard fan, and she's the craziest fan out of all of us. And my grandfather was that way. So it's really just been ingrained in us since day one. My grandfather used to watch, I mean, women's lacrosse on ESPN2 at 3 in the morning. Like he was just a sports nut.
Was he was
But
he
I think
gambling on
there's a
those games?
difference.
Was he gambling on
He
those
was
games,
a,
man?
he he was a big casino guy, not
Okay.
sports better though.
Okay, because that's
Um,
usually a sign if you're
right.
watching women's lacrosse at 3 o'clock
Now,
in the.
yeah, nowadays, if you see the college kid up at 3 a.m., that's a telltale
I'm not
sign.
saying I'm sure your grandfather is a
Um,
wonderful man, so that is what it is. I apologize. Keep going though.
no. But I think there's a difference between the diehard sports fan, there's tons of them, and my interest was in the business side of it. I knew I wanted to actually work in sports. I think a lot of people, they want to consume sports on the weekends at nights, but go do a different job because, I mean, the sports industry is very tough. It doesn't pay the greatest when you're just getting started. So I always wanted to be in the business in sports. I started, I would string lacrosse sticks. I was from Maryland, so lacrosse is big. I would string mini sticks and sell them, to classmates, stuff like that. So I just always knew I wanted to be on the business side of sports.
That's really interesting. So one thing I've always noticed, just like you said, like everybody wants to work in sports. You know, I grew up, I mean, when I was, I don't know, like 12 years old, like my dream job was to work at ESPN. It's not quite my dream job anymore, but at the same time, it's always something where I always wanted to work in sports, but that didn't, I mean, sports is just an industry, right? Like
Yeah.
you can work in beer. Like, you know,
Yeah.
you could do the distribution, the marketing of it, the selling of it. There's so many different things. So I guess, you know, you say the business side, but like specifically, and I think I know the answer, but I want to ask you, like specifically, what was it? Just anything will go, or was there you're somewhere like siloed that you really wanted to try and focus your energy?
So I had no clue. And I really didn't have a clue even in my senior year. I was like, I don't even know what marketing in sports really means. Like
Hmm.
I get the idea of it, but then like a KPI, like what's a KPI? They don't teach you all that in school. They teach you, you know, random stuff. I did do sports management at the University of Texas, but um,
Wait, Jack, is Texas back?
we're always back.
Okay, cool. Just
Another
want to know.
big bull win.
Hey, man, I'll take
We
it. I'll
got
take it.
we got the quarterback. We did play LSU closest out of pretty much every
That
team.
was one of my favorite games all year, but
That
I'm
was
sorry. Anytime I hear someone is from UT Austin, I just have to ask them. First,
you
hook them.
have to.
Second, are they back?
Always,
And clearly,
always
everybody tells me they're back, so also I'll
there.
go with it.
But so my sophomore year of college with my roommate, we had some time. We were living in the fraternity house, and I was like, let's sell phone cases. Like, we'll get designs. We'll kind of use players. You know, we did that gray line of likeness and stuff like that. So we ordered those. Then we went to print on demand. But we did really fun stuff, and that was at A-list cases. We worked with John Wall, Mohamed Sanu, some fun guys. But we were marketing all through social media. So everything was Twitter, Instagram. I'm buying ads, which led me to one, just fall in love with social media and be like, all right, this is an awesome platform. Two, like, okay, I'm tired of paying these accounts big money. I just want to have my own here. Actually, the first game I ever shot content for was Texas versus Oklahoma, Baker Mayfield. We lost that game, but it was a fun game. Um, so that's kind of where it started over 2 years ago. How I got onto Snap, Instagram. There's so many people on Instagram.
Hmm.
Twitter was pretty much dying in the sense of being able to build. Snap was just so young, so I kind of attacked there, and that's how I started Snapback, and then just fell into the wormhole that is social.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, there's so much stuff you can do. You know, as you said with Instagram, there's so many people on it. With Twitter, I think Twitter is probably the worst place on planet Earth. I don't think anything good happens on Twitter. I think it's all just a lot of negativity. I go on a couple times a year, playoffs for any sport really, and
Yeah.
the NFL draft. Those are really the only times I ever actually want to see what people are saying. Other than that, it's usually just deep, dark, and depressing, and I'm not really into that anymore. So I deleted that app off my phone very quickly. I remember, so you and I actually connected, I think, a couple years ago at Bacon Sports for a minute, which was kind of cool. We had
Yeah.
that little time together. You know, shout out Rob; he'll be on here pretty soon. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, I remember you telling me you did something with. Oh shoot, Mitchell off the Jazz, right? Donovan Mitchell. Did you do something with him with A List?
Um.
I feel like with that
Oh.
that
Oh.
sweatshirt, right? Didn't you do
Yeah, yeah.
have something to do
So
with sweatshirt?
so once we went to print on demand, we were just trying different things. You know, he had the rookie sweatshirt with his little feud with
Hmm.
Ben Simmons. So
Another
we tried
hated
just kind of
Philadelphia star, by the way.
yeah.
Yeah.
We tried just kind of copying that. We just would do what's hot. Our biggest success, our most successful product ever was a tweet. It's a picture of LeBron James holding a Kevin Durant tweet. And in like 2009, when LeBron goes to Miami, Kevin Durant tweets like, "Oh, you're just gonna team up and whatever." And then obviously Durant goes and does that in Golden State. So it's LeBron holding that tweet. Nick Wright wore it on Fox Sports. Like it really went hyper viral, which was pretty cool. Um, but yeah,
That
that was
that's
one of
pretty
the better
funny.
memories.
So through social media, I mean, so real_sports is your Snapchat, correct?
That's the username.
Okay.
Recently changed the name to Snapback Sports
Okay.
because Real Sports, if you haven't heard, has a little standing place on HBO as
Yeah,
a
if I'm not
show.
mistaken, Gumble to Gumble, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I think that one could get it
Yeah,
kind of in the way. And I guess if you're starting to get famous, cease and desist letters mean you're doing something right, man. So hell, keep doing what you're doing,
exactly.
I guess. Um,
Yeah.
so Snapback Sports at real_sports on Snapchat. Make sure everyone go follow that if you could. With that, I mean, I guess how you said you kind of fell into that wormhole. Where, like, how did it start? Like, how does something like that, just a simple Snapchat page, like, because everyone got one, right?
Yeah.
But you clearly did something a
Yeah.
little different with yours.
So there is the world of social media, which is, these incredible marketers, content ideas, like unbelievable people doing very little with resources at Bleacher, at, teams and leagues, all that stuff. And then there's a side of the internet and social media that even those people aren't aware of. And that are these 14 to 19-year-old kids running the world through Kick Messenger, through WhatsApp, and they are trading shout outs, they're doing paid shout outs, they're driving app installs, downloads, etc. So what I was doing, we were selling a John Wall phone case. So I would go DM the 3 biggest pages on Instagram: Basketball Vines, Dunk, Hoops Nation, and say, okay, how much to get posted? They would say $250. I post, we make $100, but I had to pay $250, plus we had to pay for the cases. We profited, but it was very small.
Hmm.
So I was like, all right, how do I just start to build this? And what you do is you go find these kids who have billions of views, billions of followers. They have these mass networks. So, I pay $1,000 and they shout me out, and I'm posting good content. I post every day while I'm awake, every 30 minutes. So, I mean, you can imagine thousands of pieces of content a day. And it just kind of builds, and then it snowballs into, okay, now you have a big enough base to where people are going to share with their friends, and you kind of grow. And then I reinvest. I make money from brands. I just do that again. I haven't done that in a while because, like I said, the growth, it stops on every platform at some
Hmm.
point where you just can't really reach that. But that was kind of how it got started. Snap is, my favorite and most hated platform because they don't want actually influencers to be on kind of the
Hmm.
platform, which is interesting. Like Instagram fully embraces it. It's a massive part of it. They want it to really be about friends or their content, which makes sense. That's how they make their money. They change the algorithm all the time. Evan Spiegel one day, I think he flew home from London and changed the entire app's layout, and it cut my followers in half in one day. So
Whoa.
it's been a wild ride, but I mean, it's really truly brought me great things.
Hmm. And I see you still post on it. I mean, I was just looking at it today again. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I know you're still on there and everything, but
Yeah.
with that in mind, I mean, did you then take your content and everything that you have and you do to Instagram, where there is something that you can kind of take more advantage of the mass volume of I mean, again, 480 million is a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone told you. I mean, I guess we're shooting for 1 billion next year, but
Yeah.
I mean, so like, what did you kind of take all that information and content and kind of place it onto the Instagram platform?
So everyone kept telling me, go to Instagram, move over your followers in some form or fashion. But the whole reason I went to Snap was because I didn't want to just be an Instagram page. I think you can do very different things on Snap. Obviously, when they added IG stories, it kind of
Hmm.
duplicated that a little. But the only thing I do on Instagram is I build my personal brand. So I have 34,000 followers on my personal Instagram. And then the Instagram for the podcast has about 12,000. So that was an example of, all right, I have this mass following here. How else can I create content off platforms? So we started the podcast during the NBA finals, and then build an Instagram page for it just to have kind of a holding spot.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I've listened to a couple of the podcast episodes. You and your friend Abe, you guys got some great chemistry, which is awesome.
Thank you.
And I think it's great that you kind of have the foresight to see, as you've already told me in multiple ways, platform growth is going to stop at some point. Like, it has to
Mm-hmm.
plateau, right? And especially if they keep changing these algorithms on you, keep changing all this shit, it's going to make it very difficult for you to just kind of, that trajectory is going to slow down. So I think it's great that you started the podcast. And I guess, like, what is your favorite part about, and I think the term's kind of stupid, but podcasting, I mean, it's talking into a microphone. It's an on-demand radio show, right? It's
Yeah.
my actual favorite thing in the world, as I've already told you. So, I mean, what do you like about so much of it? I mean, to the point where now you got two.
Yeah. My favorite part has been, well, obviously just sitting down and just talking shit to Abe and having people listen, like, was crazy
Mhm.
because, yeah, when we do it and it's my friends and my family and they're like, okay, guys, shut up. Like, let's go eat or something. But now, thousands of people are tuning in twice a week, which is pretty nuts. And then we got to interview, I mean, Nate Burleson came on the podcast through Whistle. I did, Spice Adams, Famous Los, Max is Nice. So, like, some pretty big names, some pretty cool people to talk to, which was really cool to see them open up. But I just think, like, the moment was when we hit number one on the charts, because it was like, the whole concept behind the podcast is like, everyone talks sports and everyone on TV are talking heads who kind of just, now it's like a battle of hot takes, right?
Mhm.
Like, because
Yep.
Skip Bayless and Shannon have to go completely ridiculous just so then Stephen A can say something ridiculous so that they can get eyeballs and viewers. And now it's to the point where there's so many good outlets, podcasting, Twitter, TikTok, whatever, that you don't just have to listen to someone because they wear a suit and they work for ESPN. So we just want to be two regular guys who are just having our opinions, and we'll have hot takes. We genuinely believe them, but we're not competing. Like, we're not going to draw viewers away from that. So when we first started the podcast, like 2 months in was when we started climbing the charts. And I did a little giveaway. That's always been the biggest part of the Snap, is like giving back to the followers, because once again, I'm just a guy who likes sports. I'm not doing anything super special here. I'm just providing them good content. So we incentivize them to kind of push us up the charts. We were moving up, and then we were passing, and it was like 1:00 in the morning on a Saturday night when we passed them. And I FaceTime Abe, and I was like, "This is pretty crazy," because I just wouldn't imagine we would ever reach number one on the chart. So that was the most fun moment. Week in and week out, though, it's just hanging out,
Mhm.
talking, opens up opportunities.
Exactly, man. I think that's awesome. And yeah, as the one you have with your partner Abe, you guys have that show together. And then you
Mhm.
have another one, right, where you just
Yes,
speak with influencers. Is that one's through your current full-time position at Whistle, correct?
that's correct.
Very cool. So tell me about, like, I know, so again, you and I connected when we were at Bacon Sports for a minute. You then went to Action Network, and I have to ask this question, and I'm sure I'm not the first person. I'm never going to be the last. How cool is Darren Ravel?
I got asked this by my coworker 3 hours and 42 minutes ago.
Look at that.
We were
Look how
just
unique
talking
I
about
am.
Darren. We were just talking about Darren. He is, first of all, as a person, he's like just the nicest person I've ever met. It's crazy. He will go to lengths for you. If he's your guy, he will go to any lengths for you. When I left Action, he did say, "I hate you and I will never help you in your career." I don't know if he meant that or not. Um, but in terms of, like, he is just who he is. He's the most genuine, authentic person I've ever met. What he says online is just like who he is. He's not trying to get views, engagement, all of that. He knows what works. He's a genius. People don't appreciate that. There was the March Madness, during the championship game. It was at 9:30 at night. And there were like 4 hours before the game, and nothing was happening. No basketball. No one's watching pregame for 4 hours. He's like, "Let me just sing one shining moment." So I'm there filming him. 3.3 million views on Twitter. JJ Watt quote tweet. Tom Brady quote tweet. Like, who would have thought? Everyone's waiting for the game to talk about it on Twitter for their engagement, on Instagram to post highlights. And he's like, "What do you mean? There's this white space. Let's do something crazy." And then obviously he probably won't say he embarrassed himself. I would say, he tried to make a whole spectacle.
Uh-huh.
It was something. But he just really is a very smart guy. And yeah, I had a fun time working with him.
I don't understand why people hate the guy so much. I mean, yeah, I mean, he could kind of be a little nerdy, I guess, but I mean, he always comes off as a nice guy, genuine, authentic, as you said. So it always surprises me when people, just when I'm talking with my friends, they just talk about how much they hate him. It's like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I kind of like when
Like,
he
you don't
posts.
know him.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously I don't know him, but I
No,
really
no, but
just,
people who hate
oh,
him,
yeah.
it's like you don't know him. If you saw him, you would actually, want to talk to him. You would want to mess with him. Like it should be if you dislike, you shouldn't genuinely dislike him. If you dislike him, it's in like a fun, joking way, which he plays into. Um, he's a clown. He
Hey
is a
man, it
clown.
works. I mean, who doesn't know who Darren Rovell is, right? And my favorite
Uh,
part is, I don't know if I haven't really seen it too much anymore, but he used to just post the craziest food pictures every Saturday for college football. And I would
yeah,
love it, and I would
yeah,
salivate, and then I'd go watch the game. So that was
yeah.
that was kind of like,
He took me to City Field for opening day for the Mets. They gave us a whole spread of food. I filmed him taste testing through the whole stadium. But you mentioned it earlier about how Twitter can, be a negative place. I think that's the hate portion.
mhm.
If you then go and actually look on his Instagram, where he has way less followers, his Instagram story, he'll post, the 1 in 100 hate posts, but people love him on Instagram. They go for advice, they go for help. So I think it is part of the platform that's just filled with negativity.
Yeah, I don't understand. You don't find as much negativity anywhere but
Yeah.
Twitter, dude, and it's terrible. I've muted so many words and so many accounts that like nothing really happens anymore. So yeah, as I said, I don't really go on there anymore. Um, so yeah, happy to hear that. Happy to hear he's a cool guy. So that was you spent some time at Action Network. You're now at Whistle. Whistle Sports, content strategy and talent. Talent part being you get in front of the microphone and you get to talk to some cool people and have some great conversations. What exactly does content strategy mean? Like how like are you run that whole division, whole department over there?
No, I wish one
No,
day
one day,
maybe.
yeah, one day,
Yeah.
man.
Um, Content strategy is just, I've been in social media for 6 7 years actually working in it. A lot of people can't really say that. I'm only my second year out of college, and I think just coming in, strategy doesn't mean I'm not doing the work. I'm still sourcing clips, finding clips, creating content, but coming in with a new strategy. So when I got there, we were at 70,000 on TikTok, which is a brand new platform, and we wanted to be on TikTok. So we're now at 1 million, which is really awesome. I can't take all the credit. A lot of credit goes to my coworker, Emily, but that's an example of coming in and being like, all right, this is what we got to do. This is what people are looking for. Same thing on Instagram. We're growing on Instagram, Twitter, changing the voice. And then also I've started to help build businesses within Whistle. So we started podcasting. So they brought me in to kind of help that. I had worked in merchandise with A-list, print on demand, design, sports, etc. So I came in to kind of support that, as well as launch my own store through them. And that's where the baby goat merch can be found.
Well, what's
Um,
the URL? You have to give me the URL so I can
yeah,
send people there so they can buy this stuff, man.
snapbacksports.store.
There we go.
So like it's a lot of different things. It's just they said you can pick your title, and I was like, I have no clue like what titles are
It's
titles are
ego.
literally titles. Yeah.
It's just ego, man. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been asked to pick my own title before. I was just like, "How's this sound?" They're like, "Okay, is that what you want?" I was like, "I don't
Yeah.
care. It doesn't mean anything." Like,
It does not mean anything at work, but to people outside of it, it does. So
yeah,
it can be interesting to see like how people, kind of
yeah,
perceive it.
yeah. I mean, manager of brand partnerships is one of my titles, and I think that's cool. That's kind
Yeah.
of what I do. So I don't really give a shit if people like, oh, that's you. It's like, yeah, that's me, I guess. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
Do you want me to be the senior executive director of brand partnerships?
Right.
Like, nothing matters, but
Yeah.
it's always pretty interesting. So, I mean, congratulations on that, man. Obviously everything you're doing, I think it's super cool. And that's why I wanted to have you on here, have a quick conversation, see what you're up to. So a couple more things. I mean, one thing I've found, especially with talent, let's call it, the people yourself, the people on air. I don't know, like one thing that I've noticed is, as you said, like a lot of people want to work in sports, but really they just want to consume it on the weekend. Really, I just want to sit down on my couch and watch football from 12 to 1
Right.
o'clock in the morning on Saturday and 1 o'clock to 11 o'clock on Sunday. Um, how do you kind of, for lack of a better term, stay on? Because that's one thing, especially with talent, that you have to always be on. I'm a big bar, not even a big Barstool guy. I just love Part of My Take,
Yeah.
but they're always on, and they always have to be on. And you can kind of tell sometimes when it's like, dude, I want to like walk away for 3 days and like just
Yeah.
hang out with my family. So how do you kind of make sure that you're always on and always have that energy, have that excitement, especially at 9 o'clock on a Monday night right after we just got back from the holiday break?
Uh, it's not really a choice. It's just, you have to do it.
But you get to do it.
Yes.
You get to do it.
You get, well, that's the
Yeah.
thing. You have to do it, so
Yeah.
you get to do it.
Hmm.
I'm the only one who posts on the Snap. So every single post is from me. So I don't have a choice. If I don't post, nothing goes up. So when I went to Italy this summer, I said to myself and my family and my girlfriend, I was like, all right, I'm not going to post for a few days. 6 hours later, I was like, what if the page falls apart? So I'm back posting, and free agency was while I was there. We recorded a podcast 6 a.m. I had to wake up. But on the flip side, I watch football from 12 to 1 a.m. So do a lot of people who aren't working.
Hmm.
So when I'm working, they're also not doing anything technically productive. So it just depends how you kind of spin it. And then like with phones, it makes it a lot easier. It's not like I have to sit at my desk till 1 a.m. So I can be wherever. I can kind of be out. But it is a lot. Like every Sunday night and Wednesday night, it's a requirement for Abe and I to record a podcast, whether we're on vacation, whether, we have stuff that comes up, which means, okay, I only have 5 other nights to do things, like come talk with you. So
Thanks, buddy.
it is, but I enjoy it. I like being on. It's just, it's what I want to do. So
Exactly. I mean, like literally, can you think of a cooler thing than, I mean, obviously there's directions you're going, but like
yeah,
being able to sit down, talk about sports with your friends, enjoy yourself, consume, but also,
yeah.
post and engage with other people about sports. I mean, it, in my opinion, it does not get any cooler than that. It doesn't get any
It's
more enjoyable.
the only time where I'm like, oh, I wish I could put my phone down is at games. But I know it's my job. So
Yeah.
like a few, like my friends, if they go to a game, they'll probably post an Instagram story, maybe a Snapchat story, 2 or 3 times, a few times. But like when I'm at a game, I kind of have to be, recording every
Hmm.
time it seems in the red zone. And like I think forward, I'm hoping the Ravens make the Super Bowl. So when I'm there, I wish I could enjoy the moment, but I'll kind of have to be working. But is that the worst thing in the world that I have to be recording the Super Bowl from the stands? Absolutely friggin' not.
I think
So
if you put it like that, yeah, I think most people would agree that it's a pretty
yeah,
cool job to have.
yeah. So I understand that. And then people always ask me, like, I've had a solid amount of success at this point. I'm only 23. What's next? Do you want to become director or manager
Yeah,
and
right.
get the
Executive
job title?
director. Yeah.
Do you want to move? And I'm like, well, let's see. I now, I'm gonna go to the Ravens game on Saturday, and then potentially fly down to New Orleans for the national championship. Do I want to make more money so that in 20 years maybe I could then go see a national championship? Like, I'm just, I get to do what I would want to do if I had the money. So
But someone else is paying for it currently?
depends. Sometimes they'll
Okay.
come out of my pocket.
Okay.
The thing I like to do is partner with brands. So like
There you
my
go.
favorite brand right now is TickPick, which is like StubHub but without fees. So like I'll work with them and try and figure out something. It normally comes with a giveaway though. So like if I'm going to the game, maybe not for the national championship, but for a different game, if I'm going, then hopefully someone who follows me can go too. We gave away like courtside Hawks tickets. I've never sat courtside. Like TickPick, like my boy Kyle texted me. He was like, "Yo, do you want to give away Hawks tickets courtside against the Warriors?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." I wish I could make it down to Atlanta. So
I
he
also
went
wish that game was last year, but it's still
right,
court.
right.
I'd
That's
still
true.
go courtside. I
That's
still
true.
says court, guys.
So I was like, "Yo, DM me like a cool story." So a kid, I would say a 24-year-old DMs me and is like, "Hey, my brother has autism and it was his birthday last week. I would love to like go to the game." And I was like, "Here you go." He drove 2 hours to the game to take his little brother. They sat courtside, and I'm like, "That's awesome." Like that's that's a great way to use the platform I have. It's not to gamble away all my money. It's not to just go enjoy it for myself. So that's where it becomes fun for me.
That is awesome, man, and congratulations. That is a pretty cool story, and I
Yeah.
mean that's one thing about sports. Again, why I love it so much is the emotion
Hmm.
on both sides. As you and I just hate the Eagles, there's
Yeah.
nothing more than gets me angry than that. I promise you, like nothing more in the world gets me angrier. Um, but then on the flip side, there's nothing like that can bring people together like sports, which I think
It's
is
amazing.
incredible, and what you've been able to do in building your platform and being able to give to others through that platform. I mean, that's only I mean, what else could you really ask for, right? Like
Yeah.
you make a couple
Exactly.
bucks, you go to all these incredible games. Oh
Yeah.
no, you have to have your phone recording in the red zone when your team is
Right.
potentially going to go to the AFC Championship.
Right.
Anything but that,
Right.
no. I mean, but it's still like that is just so cool, and being able to help others through it. I just think, man, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I
Haven't
appreciate
quite hit the jackpot yet, but man, you're well on your way. So
it. Yeah.
love to follow the story. So on that note, you said working with brands, and I always think that's really interesting, especially. So I work with a lot of athletes. I work with some properties. We work with some brands for those sponsorship and partnership opportunities for the athletes, for the properties, and it is so much fun. And I thoroughly enjoy the creativity that you get to do, as you can see on the opposing end. How did you start a lot of these relationships? Because I know one thing now is, how many followers do you have, how many views do you get, what are your engagements? If those three things check
Yeah.
off, a lot of brands will just say, okay, cool, let's work together. But how, like in the beginning, has it differed from now working with them, especially with making sure that morals, missions, values, all those things align? Because you don't want to just work with a random brand that it
Yeah.
turns out they're just a bunch of scumbags anyway. So how do you
Yeah.
kind of vet those, and how do you really work through those processes to make sure that everybody's coming out with a win in a situation?
It hasn't differed one bit since the start. And that's the craziest part of Snapchat. As big as my page has become, over 1 million followers, I don't like you just don't find accounts on Snap. You don't, brands don't come to Snap. They're on Instagram. They see you have 1 million followers on Instagram. Oh my God, I would love to work with you. I would want to do this. You're verified, all that stuff. So from day one, it's been my personal Instagram DM. And this is when I had, I don't know, 800 followers. I would DM brands. I would cold email. I would DM the CEOs, the VPs, LinkedIn, whatever it was. And just be like, hey, I have this hyper engaged audience. Do you want to, would you want to try working out? It's like, okay, give me $50. I'll make a post about your app. They get hundreds of downloads. So then I'm like, all right, maybe I need to rethink, like maybe my pricing here. Every partner I've worked with, I genuinely can say they wish they could come back. The issue is like at some point you tap out, because the
Yeah.
difference between my page and any other page is I'm always, all my deals are conversion based. Like I've never taken an advertising deal where it's like, okay, Gatorade wants to send me to a game, and as long as there's Gatorade branding, they're okay. This is like app downloads, deposits on fantasy apps. Like this is conversion stuff that like no one really does. Which I think at some point, if the economy doesn't falter, but we're
Mhm.
we're in a happy money
Yeah,
spending
everybody's got
economy
money.
right now.
Yep.
Everyone has money. If people don't have money, they're going to start spending on people who convert. And that's kind of always been my thing, which is why I always give back, giveaways constantly, Christmas giveaways, um, all that type of stuff. So when I have an ask, which is the asks are always like this weekend, I worked with Flash Plays, which is a prediction app. So like Eagles versus Seahawks. Is Miles Sanders going to have over 18 yards in the first quarter? You click yes or no. If you get it right, you move on. It's free to enter, and the winner got $1,000. So like all I'm asking them is to download a free app and play a game where they can win money. So it does make it easier on me, but I converted. Um, so I think conversions has always been like my thing, which is a good thing to have, because I
Yeah.
know down the line, advertising will kind of shore up. But yeah, it's always been just cold emailing still to this day.
That's incredible, man. I mean, keep
Yeah.
keep pushing, keep doing it. It's clearly working.
Yeah.
If you're still doing your thing, you're getting app downloads. I mean, people are, because as you said, especially with the landscape now, people have money, so they're okay spending it.
Right.
And obviously, brand awareness is half the battle. If you don't know someone exists, how can you buy their product? But at the same time,
Right.
same token, you make a good point. Pretty soon, when that budget starts to shrink and they can see, okay, this isn't as converting as much, let's put more money into the guy that converts. You're sitting in a pretty good spot, Jack. You're sitting in a pretty good
Exactly.
spot, man. So keep doing what you're doing. I love it, dude.
Don't get me wrong though. Like I think like the best deal in the world is the one, the company with $100 million marketing budget who says, okay, you have a lot of followers here, just make this post and we'll pay you out the wazoo. I mean, I would love those deals. There's just
Hey,
no one has the respect for Snap that they have for other platforms right now. But
even
maybe one day.
even with showing them, I mean, I saw the screenshot that you have on LinkedIn, and in the Sports Biz Slack group. Shout out Nick Hayden for his help there. Like even when you show them, hey, like this is legitimate. Like this is screenshot. This is what I have. This is what you can get. Brands still aren't as interested, even though again, 480 million is an insane,
It's
insane number.
probably it's probably a little bit on me. I haven't shot for the stars. I haven't gone to a Gatorade and said, hey, this is what we should do. I'm just starting to do that. I'm trying to work with the XFL. I think that would be really cool. They're a
That
brand
would be
new
cool.
league. So I'm trying to kind of increase that. And that was a big part of why I moved to Whistle. Our sales team is spectacular, talks to big brands like that all the time, Under Armour, etc. But there still is that education process of like, oh, you have this guy on Snapchat. Oh, okay. Well, Snap's cool, but what else do you have? So it's early, even though we're over 2 years in, but it's early.
It's getting late early, Jack. It's getting late early. That's awesome, man. And so I guess like where do you find your influence? Like being an influencer in every sense of the word, like where do you get your influence from to then help others influence?
um, well, I hate the word
Me
influencer.
too. I
It
freaking
took
hate
me
that word so
it
much.
it's like the title thing that we were talking about.
Yep.
I literally refused to call myself an influencer for 2 years. And then in the past few months, now I do it because that's what brands want. They
Hmm.
want influencers. If I just say, oh, I have a page, they're like, okay, everyone has a page. But in terms of your question, maybe like elaborate on, I guess what you're asking.
Where do you find your inspiration? Like how you find all this content and then you go and find these brands, but
Mm-hmm.
how do you believe in them? How do you like them? How do you know them? How do you want to work with them? Why do you want to work with, specifically the brands
Yeah.
that you work with?
I want to work with them. I mean, I've only ever worked with sports companies,
Makes
sports
sense.
brands. So fantasy apps, Sleeper app, which is an unbelievable app for fantasy football. They're going to be the number one fantasy player. There's no doubt in my mind. I helped them gain a ton of users last year, or not this season, but the year before. And then I came back to them and they were like, hey, we want to work with you. We kind of are working on something big. And it was draft with Juju Smith-Schuster was playing in a league with Ninja and with like the number one fantasy football podcast. And I was like, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But their whole thing really matched my brand, which was fun fantasy football. And they're like a people's first. So their whole Twitter account, which keeps growing, is like, hey, do you guys like this light or dark mode? Hey, what should we do about this? And it's a full feedback loop with their users, which is awesome. ESPN is never going to do
Oh,
that.
no. God,
Bleacher's
no.
never going to do that. So finding brands like that, finding, the CEOs who are really interested in building something, but just sports in a fun way. That's pretty much
Hmm.
the company I look to work for. And how can you kind of give back to the people who are following me?
And that's kind of been the theme this whole time that we've been talking for however long, a little over half hours. You
Yeah.
love to give back. You love sports. You love to have a good time. I mean,
Yeah.
again, like if those are the
I feel
three,
like that's what sports are about.
exactly, man. Like what else is more enjoyable than, I mean, legitimately sitting down. I mean, this especially, and this is evergreen content, but just because this past weekend, wildcard weekend, was absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Multiple overtime games, the Eagles and the Patriots losing the other two games. I mean, I could not be happier. And
Yeah.
I am not a Bills fan, and I was jumping up and down during that game, just shouting for them to win because Josh
Mm.
Allen is so tall and his arm is so big. I just want him to win. And it's just one of those things, man, where I think it is so cool and it's just so much fun how much sports just we bring people together and it's just super
Yeah.
enjoyable and we all can have a really good time.
My favorite is, like I always say, could you imagine like Apple headquarters, they close like a big deal and that like grown men are just going around the room hugging, crying, slapping each other on the ass. Like No. Meanwhile, on Sunday, these guys are headbutting each
Yep.
other in celebration. They're loving each other, and the fans, it's the same way. It really, sports bring out a crazy emotion, which is, I think, if you look at it in the right way, it's a positive. There's
Absolutely.
obviously the negatives to
Eagles
the
fans.
way the fan be. Yeah, Eagles. I couldn't even wear. So I did a video blog for my first time ever, and I went to Eagles Cowboys, which was essentially for the division
Hmm.
in Philly with Abe. And the whole thing was I was going to root for the Cowboys, and they were like, "You can't wear a Dak jersey because if you like Eagles fans will throw shit at you,
You will
and it
be
will
assaulted.
not be safe." Right, right. So in that term and sense, yes, that's not the greatest. But overall, sports. I mean, you see the video, the feel goods on. If you saw, did you see the DK Metcalf draft video today?
No.
So someone resurfaced the phone call when DK gets
Oh,
drafted,
uh-huh.
uh, and Pete Carroll started, and he's just like, this is a guy who would literally crush your head with his hand, and he is weeping, sobbing, and it's just like, that's incredible. That's
Hmm.
awesome.
Literally, his dreams came true. And yeah, shout
Yeah.
out to DK Metcalf, drafted after JJ, I think, a Whiteside. So just want to throw that. Let's turn that knife a little bit more, Jack. Let's turn it more. So, man, this has been an absolute blast. I mean, being a creator, being creative, an influencer in every sense of the word, even though turns out we both hate it. What
Yeah.
advice do you have for other kids, adults, someone like myself? I mean, I consider this a creative platform, being able to talk to people and ask questions. I learn best through talking, so that's where this is my creative outlet, and I get to have a blast doing it. I mean, what advice do you have for other creatives who are either starting out or are hitting that wall that you've talked about a couple of times on some of these platforms? Like, what would you say to them to make sure that, I mean, power through it, but like, how have you gone about it, and what advice could you give some of them?
I think Nike kind of got it right when they said just do it. Um, I have just by doing. I started a podcast. What the hell did I know about podcasts? I didn't know about a mic. I didn't know about how to even how to hook it up to my computer and make sure it was going into the mic and not the computer settings. I learned about customer support when I was building a merchandise business. I learned about every single social media platform. I learned sales, business development, all that stuff. I just did the video blog for the first time. I had no clue what I was doing. I asked people questions. I go on YouTube. I learned myself, and I went and did it. Was it perfect? Obviously not. But now I have a video blog, which is, a vlog is kind of cool. It was funny, like seeing 2,000 people wanted to see, how my experience was in Philly. So literally just go and do it. People are always like, can you give me a shout out? Or how'd you get started? And I'm like, just go start. Like if you start, you're going to realize whether or not you can do this thing. And 9 times out of 10, you will be able to. You got to put in the work. There's no doubt about that. Money also helps with that. I wish I could kind of, orchestrate that, and social media is free, but it's the furthest thing from free. And I think that's a big problem in the social media industry, is like, that's why people are underpaid. It's like, dude, you're just tweeting, like it's free. Okay. But it's to grow. Oh, it's not TikTok right now. You cannot genuinely grow. You have to have a bigger platform, a company, paid media, etc. So there's no doubt, like I put money into this. I invested in it the same way I would invest in real estate. And it's a different return. So my advice though is like, just go and do it. You did it. You're now, I mean, we're talking on this because you just did it. This would never happen if you don't do it. It opens doors. So just go and do it. Do it.
And I love it. And it turns out, I mean, this is my second podcast. I have another one where I talk to Olympic athletes, and I've done over 150 of those, and it's a
Mm,
blast. And I just wanted to, I mean, if I wanted to do something, what is it? You're not going to get hired at ESPN talking to a microphone if you aren't already talking into a microphone, right? That's not how it works. They don't hire
right.
you and then say, okay, well, let's teach you. It's like, no, no, no. You should have
Yeah.
been doing this for 5 years already, and then we'll allow you to use our platform. That's kind of the way you have to think about it. And one question.
Whistle Whistle lets me do a video show And the first episode, first of all, they turn the lights on. It's my first time on camera. I'm sweating, not because I'm nervous, because there's these bright lights
Yep.
shining on me. I'm like, okay. They're like, here, you just dab here. It's easy. And then they're, I can tend to be monotone. I can be relaxed. And they're like, okay, you need to like really get into it because on camera it's going to sound different. So the first 4 episodes, I'm actually shouting. And it sounds terrible. My best friend is commenting, bro, why are you talking on caps lock? Like, it is brutal. But, 8 episodes in, it has kind of come together. But it's just a learning experience. And
Exactly.
how would I know how to do that without actually just going to do it? So,
Just got to go and do it.
yeah.
And then I guess just one follow up to that is, especially again, when a lot of people want to do something and then they hit that plateau and then they don't see the numbers that they want to see, and then they get this super amount of self-doubt and just say, well, clearly it's not working. It's like, well, no, you actually did like 10 episodes.
Yeah.
What would advice be? I mean, they did it. Let's say that person already started doing it. What would then the advice then be when they came back to you in 3 months and said, Jack, it's not working?
You got to ask, because there's bigger people. And I think Vine and TikTok, really, they do an incredible job of like, and YouTube and gamers do this. And even the big guys, they're not, they're not selfish, and they understand they came from a little. So they'll actually help them out. They'll collaborate, but you need to come with a collaborative idea. If someone comes to me and says, yo, can you shout out my new sports channel? I just started a month ago. Why? Like, why would I do that? How does that help me? If you come with an idea of like, yo, let's do this funny skit outside of Raven Stadium this weekend. I just started a channel. I would love to do it. I don't care if you have 2 followers. Of course, I'll shout you out and give you credit and help you grow. So go ask someone bigger for help, but ask them and offer something. Bring some value to it. It doesn't have to be money. And even like 200 if someone has 200 followers and you have 100, you can go gain 10 from them. And then you can gain 10 from another, and then it really snowballs. You just got to hit that mark, and then it kind of will turn.
Keep that train rolling on the tracks,
Yeah.
man. Jack, this was awesome. I think I pretty much ran through all my questions.
It's pretty much my whole life, because
Yeah.
it's been short life.
Well, I
So
mean, it's been pretty impressive so far. I mean,
I
let's go
appreciate it.
Ravens, baby goat. Please send me all that information. Oh, where else can we find you online if you want to give us some handles?
Where else? At Jack Settleman on Instagram and Twitter. At real_sports. I'll leave you with the funny story about Real Sports. So I mean, we talked about it since day one. I've been a diehard sports fan and sports business fan. So I knew about Real Sports. So people always ask me, why'd you name it that if you knew that could become a problem? It just totally went over my head. I was like, I want to record and post real sports, behind the scenes stuff, cool opportunities at Texas. So I was like, oh, I'll call it Real Sports. And then everyone's like, you're an idiot. So I go to dinner about 4 months ago in New York, and I'm sitting at the bar with my uncle, and he goes, oh, there's Brian Gumbel. And I was I was like, I feel like I don't want to really be on their radar in that sense, but like I should just tell him that it's pretty funny that this whole thing happened. So I'm like, whatever, maybe I'll do it later. I go downstairs and I'm like looking around. I don't see him. I go to the bathroom, and you ask about always being on. So I'm going to the bathroom. I'm posting something because I don't want to post during dinner. And I like look up real quickly, and it was Manny Machado. So I was like, oh, I would have loved to really talk to either one of them, but it was just a crazy little thing that kind of encapsulates everything that I've been working on, especially being a Baltimore guy. Machado was the great Oriole in my lifetime. So, yeah.
Well, first off, where do you go to dinner, man?
That's a good question, because I think that was the first time I've eaten at a restaurant in New York in the 2 years and 4 summers I've been here with a famous person. And there were 2 of them in the same meal, which is pretty crazy.
No such thing as a coincidence. That's all I want to say. No such thing as a coincidence. Well, awesome, man. Jack Settleman, one more time, Snapback Sports. Check out both his podcasts, all his Instagrams and his Snapchats, his Twitters, everything. You got some cool stuff rolling, Jack. Really appreciate your time today, man.
I appreciate you having me on. This was fun. I see why you like to do this.
Yeah, dude, it's a blast. I just get to talk to cool people, ask a bunch of questions, be more interested than interesting. Hopefully I can provide some value to you, and we can be friends forever, Jack. Friends forever. I'll never let go.
I appreciate that. All right, man. Thank you.